that which made our civilization possible has stopped, has ceased to exist. You see, whether people admit it or not, and believers do admit it, but they don't always realize it, and non-believers don't realize it at all, and they don't believe it. On this earth, everything that exists, everything that happens, everything that people do, is either on God's side or it's on the side of the devil. There is no choice. There's no in-between. Between the supernatural and the natural, and the purely natural, there's no option. Christ has decreed, by coming on earth and becoming a man, becoming a baby, growing up, founding the church, he has decreed that the supernatural has penetrated the natural. The best illustration of that is from his own life, when he met this deaf man, totally deaf man. Now he could, in his power, have said, "Here, be cured, forget your deafness." In one stroke, by even not saying it, he could think it, he could will it. He didn't. He sat down, squatted down with the man, and he spat on the ground and made a little mud pie, and he pasted his ears and said, "Let your ears be opened." Why did Christ do that? Pedagogically. What was he teaching? He was teaching this, that his power penetrated all things, all matter. The supernatural has penetrated this world, this cosmos, this material cosmos of sun, moon and stars and earth and trees and water and fire and all the atoms. That's all been penetrated by the supernatural. There's nothing natural any longer. By itself, it's been penetrated by the supernatural. The result is that you're either for God or against God. There's no choice. There's no such thing as a neutral action. You can't act neutrally. You can't say, "Well, I really don't. It's not that I have nothing against God, but I simply don't believe in it, and I'm simply a normal human being." No, you're not. No, we're all abnormal. The abnormal has happened. The divine has happened to us, and nature forever is changed. Okay, number one. Number two, this is a divided nature. There is a personage called Lucifer, whom we call Lucifer, or Satan, or Old Scrat, or Old Nick, whatever name we give this personage. He's an angel, and he heads legions of angels, all of whom hate us, all of whom are already in hell, all of whom are sworn enemies of Christ and of God. They have permission, a certain amount of permission, to tempt us to rule the world, to govern men, to sway their minds and wills, and they do. Because man is supremely free. Our free will is our greatest and most terrible gift, and they do persuade many people to follow them. The result is that a civilization such as ours was built on the principle of Christ's salvation. And by the way, you know what happened? Be very clear-minded in your mind how we did this. Remember, we were born in the middle of one of the greatest empires that ever existed, the Roman Empire. And until we got to the center of the empire and got power, we said, "We'll have nothing to do with you." The early Christians wouldn't fight. They were killed. They wouldn't join the army. They were told to by the Romans, as citizens, they wouldn't join until they got power. Then they created their own army. And from about the year 400 AD to 1400 AD, 1,000 years, Christians created their new civilization, out of which came everything. Came the Renaissance, and came the Enlightenment, and came science, and came all modern things. The hairdos we have, the clothes we're wearing, the language we're speaking, the science we have, the machines we have, the light, the electricity, the automobile, the plane. Everything came out of that civilization. Everything, including our charity, our hospitals, our medicine. Everything came out of it. Now, that civilization is breaking up. Why? It would seem that Lucifer has been given permission to break it up, because men started breaking it up in the 16th century, 17th century, 18th century, and according as they broke it up, God turned away and said, "Okay, I'll create a new one." But he always waits. There's always a time lag, and we're in the time lag at the present moment between one state and another state, and therefore we're neither fish nor flesh nor good red herring, as they say in my native Ireland. We're neither Christian nor unchristian. We're in transit between two points. One was the ancient civilization that's dead. It's dead, completely dead. You have now the nations completely without God. When they gather together, they don't do that in the name of God. They don't know it, and they should. There's only one king of the universe, and that's Christ. They don't acknowledge Christ. His statue is not in the United Nations. And they don't do anything with his blessing. They are acting purely and simply out of self-interest. And that is the fury of the nations, as the Bible calls it, which leads them to their destruction. Now we instinctively know that we're headless. We instinctively know that there's nothing really between us and all harm except the good God. That there's now no protection for us socially, politically, civilly. That we are exposed, naked, and that we can be taken away by superior powers of state and of the world, and nobody will save us.
Could you tell me why we need a permit and what ordinance or law it is that requires we have a permit? What's the county law?
She said, we don't have a permit, nor do we need a permit. You need a permit, that's the law. Could you tell us what the law is, officer? No, pick up your signs and leave or you'll be arrested. So that's exactly what we did. Soon after we had set up there in the town of Bel Air, 5 minutes later, here come the Maryland State Police. Why are you arresting us? They said, that's irrelevant.
Last month, 18 pro-lifers were falsely arrested in Bel Air. The demonstrators participating in a Face the Truth tour were heckled, arrested, imprisoned, shackled, and strip-searched. Twice. Their crime? Exercising their First Amendment rights. After spending the night in jail and in leg irons, the jackboots simply opened the door and sent them away.
Before there was a Christian civilization, of Christian kings, Christian empires, Christian powers, there were powerful men socially, politically, culturally. It doesn't exist any longer. There's no such thing as Christian civilization. It's dead as a doornail. There's now this modern civilization, the glamour of it all, the richness of it all, the fecklessness of it all, the dirt of it all, the impurity of it all, and the self-satisfaction of it all. Me, 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 me. It's always me. What's good for my body? What's good for my mind? What's good for my pocket? How can I be more beautiful? How can I be ever young? How can you help me? How can you make me better? Make me happier? Make me richer? It doesn't. Now there's a lot of goodness, traces of the old civilization, love of neighbor and help of the sick, protection of the weak and the helpless. There's a lot of that. That's all remnant stuff. It's not official. There's no real official charity, official love, official compassion, official purity. Come on, there's not.
So our civilization, in a nutshell, is breaking down.
It's broken
because what had built it to start with, the Christian ideas,
is gone.
Are now disappearing.
They're gone. They're gone. They're gone.
But there's an anti-religious movement right here in the United States. The Catholic Church is being persecuted by this government.
In what country in the world do Catholics, or Christians even, sway the parliaments? No, there's no place. There's no parliament really acting in Christian principles for the love of God and the kingdom of Christ. No, there isn't one. There were originally, and not so long ago there were. That's all dead and gone. The world has turned away from God completely.
What the world is looking for is a movement that is not stepping away from something, but stepping into something. What the world is looking for is not a group of people pointing back to the Dark Ages and saying that's what Christianity did to us. Instead, what the world is looking for is a movement that is pointing forward and says the next age is going to be bright and beautiful and brilliant, and it will be filled with humanistic values. Can I get a Darwin? You're making that possible. You're shaking the hands. You're hugging the necks of the leaders of not the Dark Age, but of the age of enlightenment that is to come.
We know, therefore, that the walls have been broken down in the city, and there are wild animals out there, and they're prowling, and they're devouring us. And there's no knocking, we've no protection. There's no protection. The very people supposed to guard us devour us. Whether it's our police, whether it's our FBI, whether it's our armies, whether it's the state, we don't know. Whether it's the corporate powers, we don't know. They're polluting our air and polluting our food and robbing our money with their taxes. I mean, we're no longer protected. The animals are loose and we have no walls. They're within the wall. There's no walls, no gates. The city is unprotected, and we know that. And that's our loneliness. And we don't know what to do about it. And those of us who have beliefs scan the scriptures and scan the sayings of holy men and listen to the appearances of Our Lady and ask what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, is it going to happen soon, is there going to be a change, are we going to be delivered from this, when will it be safe to walk our streets, when will it be safe again to send my children to school, when will I have really solid trust in the priest when he comes and the bishop when he comes, that the priest won't fiddle with my son and destroy his virginity, or with my daughter, or the bishop will tell me the truth and not just steal my money and give me a lie. And when will the Pope give me real direction and be a real apostle? When will that day come back again? It will come back, but not nowadays. That's why we're so lonely and abandoned and lugubrious. We're not a happy race in any sense of the word. And if we pretend we are, then it's simply foolishness. We're not really. Deep down, we're very unhappy people. That's the condition of the civilization we're in. And there's no movement out of that so far. There's no light at the end of the tunnel, Bernard. There's nothing happening that would give you the slightest idea that there's going to be an upturn.